Testing. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Council of City of Springdale for December 6th. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we're off and away. The next item on the agenda is the minutes. The minutes were provided in the packet for November 15th, 2023. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, we got that first mistake out of the way early. If you could take roll.
Certainly. Mr. Anderson?
Present.
Mr. Gleaves?
Present.
Mr. Jacobs?
Present.
Ms. McFarland?
Present.
Mrs. Webster?
Present.
Mrs. Sullivan-Weiscup? Mr. Vanover?
Present.
Great. Now we move on to the minutes. The minutes were submitted to you in your packets ahead of time for November 15th, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections? Ms. Webster. Ms. Webster, you had your call light on. Did you have something to add?
Please? Okay.
You're fine. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, if we could take the roll.
Okay. Are we doing those by motion?
No, we'll just do it by acclamation.
All
All those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
2 abstentions. The minutes are approved. Abstention with Mr. Vanover and Ms. Webster. All right. Next, communications. Are there any communications for council tonight?
Yes, Mr. President, we have a liquor permit request from First Watch Restaurants on 80 West Kemper Road, and that's just a notification to the legislative authority that they are coming forward with that. And the police department does not have any comment or objection, so this will go forward if council does not want to proceed with a hearing.
All right. For people who are new to this process, typically liquor permits have to be presented to City Council, and there's an opportunity if anyone has questions or concerns about it. This would be your opportunity to ask. Otherwise, the new clerk or acting clerk would then submit it back to the Liquor Patrol Board so it could be processed. So let me pause for a minute. Are there any questions or concerns about that liquor permit? All right, seeing none, we can go ahead and get it filed.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. Next, we have communications from the audience. At this point, I'll open the floor for communications from anyone in the audience that would like to address council for any reason. If you could come forward, state your name, sign in at the ledger, and then let us know what you have to say. I'll remind you that, for what it's worth, there's a 5-minute limit for speaking, which can be extended if it's needed. I do apologize. We're in the process of ordering a new clock to help with the timer. So I've got this here that I'll use, but if you have any questions or can't see it, let me know.
Okay, let me catch my breath.
You're okay. Take a minute. But when you're ready, let us know your name and address. And
My name is Richard Ross. I'm at 725 East Crescentville. And since I only have a minute,
5.
I'm going to, well, yeah, 5. You know, I was here at one of the building meetings a few months ago, and they were closing down, didn't even want to let me speak, so I finally just blurted out about a minute or two about safety, about lowering speed limits, which is becoming more common all over the world, okay? Australia, et cetera, they're all, studies are showing lower speeds help in so many ways. Those of us on Crescentville, oh my gosh, when big trucks go along there, they literally can shake our back windows. I'm not kidding. So, if you lower the speed limit a little bit, 25, 30, of course, if you go down to 25 that I'd like, people are still going to drive 30 and 40, let's face it. So right now, they're driving 50 or better. And I understand that the police have a hard time parking around there and getting speeders. You know, I'm very empathetic on all this stuff. But again, a lot of us, and I'll just go down the street and take the signatures if you want, we'd like to see a lower limit. Here's a perfect example. We have a lot of wrecks at Tivoli and Crescentville. A year and a half or so ago, a van full of kids was coming at Tivoli, of course, getting ready to turn south. Speeder comes up over the hill, tries to avoid him, smacks into him, but goes into the ditch. That lady, it took about an hour, I think, for them to get her out of there. But those kids could have all been killed, okay? Speed limit would have prevented that, okay? There's another case a few years ago. A few doors down, an older lady was backing out, and she knows how dangerous it is. She was backing out, and some guy in a little green car comes zooming down, hits her larger car so hard it spun her car around. Oddly enough, the police gave her the ticket. So again, that's one thing. Let's think about a lower speed limit there. By the way, the new lights they put up there are blinding. My neighbor Barb has to close the curtains and everything else. It's just blinding. And I have one very interesting thing to bring up. Because I gave that little talk about 2 months ago, I was a suspect in a crime. What do you think about that? Does that make sense to you? The police actually thought, oh, he's complaining about speed or something. I wonder if he's the guy putting out nails in the streets. When that detective, I'm sorry about that guy that died, I'm sorry to hear. When I spoke to him after he left his card, how you doing? What's going on, officer? You know about nails in streets? I don't know. I am getting more flat tires than normal. In fact, I just had a couple. I'm poor. I just had to spend $300 for that. So he's saying, do you know anything about concrete nails? I said, no. He said, well, they're kind of short and gray with a large head. I said, okay, at my age, I've been in Lowe's and bored and looked around. I've probably seen them. You ready for this? He said, oh, so you do know what they are. Like he's trying to put words in my mouth. I had to laugh. I had to really laugh. Like, sir, we're ending this conversation. You're not making any sense at all. Why in the world would I put nails out on a road that I drive on? Plus, I'm a nice person. Why would I do that to other people? You know? And by the way, I just talked to some guy today who had a very interesting idea. He thought it was the rental place down from me, a couple hundred yards on the north side, on Westchester side, and his theory was that they, again, are letting them out, okay? But again, I thought that, frankly, was kind of a violation of my civil rights to be investigated because I made a safety comment. Sounds kind of like 1984 or a very bizarre world.
All right. So your time's expired. Is there any comments or feedback from anyone on council at the dais? Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for coming out, Mr. Ross. In terms of the speed stuff, there have been a number of different instances around the city where folks have had concerns with regard to speed, and we can certainly look into with our speed devices to sit and place those out and see what those look like to gather some data. In terms of the nail situation, it is a matter that is pending, but I can tell you there's an individual in Westchester that's set for trial with regard to an allegation, at least, of that individual putting out nails.
Right.
So we'll administratively look into the speed on that location as we would for anyone that comes in and has a concern, and we'll get some information back. Okay.
Again, just sit there yourselves and watch the cars and trucks zip by. I mean, again, most of them are safe and all that, but many of them come up over the hill heading east, and they don't notice, maybe they've never seen Tivoli there or something, and they're shocked when somebody's turning against them. So again, I clean up. I can literally, if I had more time tonight, I'd bring in pieces of cars that I've picked up out of the street.
All right. Is there any other comments or questions from anyone else on the dais?
By the way, what's the date today?
Today's 12/6.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you for coming out. I will tell you that it has been investigated. We've looked at, at least on the speeding side, I think it was last year or the year before, for people who are new on the dais, where we actually made a uniform speed limit on Crescentville as part of that widening project. Butler County had raised their speed limit to 35 going on their side. And the thinking at the time was it made more sense to have it be uniform going both directions.
Of course, I understand.
Just understand that that was made deliberately, but as Mr. Hawkins mentioned, it's something that can be looked at.
Again, we're only talking about 1 mile. 1 mile. Just slow them down for 1 mile. They're saved gas, birds will sing, you know, all kinds of good stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
The floor is still open for communications from the audience, if there's anyone else that wants to address council. Second call. Third and final call. All right, I'm closing communications from the audience. Next, we'll move on to ordinances and resolutions. Before we get started on the ordinances, council, there was a request or an omission for another resolution, R34-2023, where there's an additional vacancy for the Board of Zoning Appeals related to a member who had moved out of the community. So the chair is asking for a motion to add Resolution 34-2023 to the agenda. Ms. Weisskopf?
I'd like to make a motion to add 34-2023 to the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the addition of this to the agenda? Ms. Weisskopf?
At what point did you want to put this in the agenda?
We'll insert it after Ordinance 50-2023 if it's approved, so the first resolution that we would read. Any other discussion on the motion to add to the agenda Resolution R34-2023? All right, Ms. Browder, if you could take the roll for the addition of this to the agenda.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan-Weisskopf?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
The motion to add Resolution R34-2023 to the agenda was approved with 7 affirmative votes. And again, as I mentioned, we'll go ahead and add that in the agenda just above Resolution R19, so it would be the first resolution that we add, just so we don't lose track of it. But we'll start with the ordinances. So with that business taken care of, if we could move on to ordinances and resolutions. The first ordinance is Ordinance 47-2023. This is a first reading, and with our new process, instead of turning to Ms. McNair, I'll turn to our Vice President, Mr. Jacobs. Thank you for taking up the mantle of reading ordinances. If you could, when you're ready.
I have very big shoes to fill. I'm going to do my best. There will be a lot of reading tonight, and we'll see how it goes. Ordinance number 47-2023, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for the property located at 501 East Kemper Road and approving the preliminary development plan and the final development plan for the property. Whereas a Chick-fil-A restaurant is currently being operated on Hamilton parcel number 059902000106, which is zoned planned unit development, and the restaurant seeks to consolidate adjacent Hamilton County parcel number 059900200135 with the existing parcel to expand their operations, and whereas the parcel to be consolidated is currently zoned Support Services District, SS, and whereas on November 14th, 2023, the Planning Commission met and considered a modification of the existing planned unit development, PUD, for the real property located at 501 East Kemper Road, and an amendment to the zoning map of the City of Springdale for a portion of the consolidated parcel involving a total of 2.27 acres, the property, the application, and whereas the application sought to rezone a portion of the property from support services to planned unit development to allow for the expansion of the business to an adjacent lot for the construction of an additional drive-through and a lot for additional parking. And whereas, as provided for in section 153.255G of the Springdale Code of Ordinances, the applicant combined the application with the preliminary development plan and the final development plan associated with the property. And whereas the City of Springdale Planning Commission in considering the application, recommended approval of the major modification and a zone change for the property from Support Services District to Planned Unit Development, and recommended approval of the preliminary development plan and the final development plan. And whereas on December 20th, 2023, after proper notice having been given, Council of the City of Springdale held a public hearing to consider the proposed change in zoning from Support Services to Planned Unit Development and the proposed development plan. And whereas upon conclusion of the public hearing, the Council of the City of Springdale considered in an open meeting the proposed amendment to the City of Springdale zoning map and the recommendation of the Planning Commission to change the zoning of 501 East Kemper Road from Support Services District to Planned Unit Development and the proposed development plan. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, the recommendation of the City of Springdale Planning Commission with regard to the major modification to the current planned unit development at 501 East Kemper Road is hereby approved, and the amendment to the City of Springdale zoning map is granted such that zoning for the consolidated parcel at 501 East Kemper Road is hereby changed from Support Services District to Planned Unit Development. Section 2, the request to approve the preliminary development plan and the final development plan for the property located at 501 East Kemper Road, which have been reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission in accordance with the exhibits listed and described in Exhibit A, which is incorporated herein by reference, is hereby approved, subject to the conditions of the Planning Commission and any other conditions or modifications imposed by Council, including A, staff, city engineer, and city planner's recommendations and considerations contained in their report shall apply, and B, as a PUD, his shall include staff, law director, and city's approval of covenants as necessary as it pertains to the project, and C, all lighting and relamping of the existing fixtures shall conform to existing city codes. Special lighting fixture conditions regarding the canopy lighting shall be reduced to a medium use from 2 to 10 max illumination. And D, special landscaping conditions to include allowing landscaping to be placed in the public right-of-way as it is illustrated, which shall be maintained by Chick-fil-A, and this shall be reviewed and approved by city staff. This shall be by permit only and is not an easement. And E, additional trees and landscaping in the public right-of-way as illustrated by the applicant to be reviewed and approved by city staff and shall be by permit with the city and it is not an easement. And F, the existing structure is not to change. And G, all other zoning code regulations and conditions shall remain in effect, and any change to these conditions shall constitute a change in the approved plans. Such changes would require approval from the Springdale Planning Commission. Section 3, Council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this Council, and that all deliberations of this Council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with the applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, this ordinance shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the reading. This is a first reading, so we won't be taking action tonight. Is there any discussion or questions regarding Ordinance 47, 2023 today? Ms. Weisskopf.
Thank you, Mr. President. For those who are new and weren't here when I reported on this last, and so that you have some background as to what this is, SS is, what we're asking is there's like this little strip of grass next to Chick-fil-A, and on the other side of it, which were just grass, SS. SS means like the function is for service districts, support service districts, so it's not, we want to add it to the PUD so that all the rules will apply to that strip as they make it into part of the drive-through and parking area in Chick-fil-A. So in order to make sure that it follows all the same rules as what we currently have for Chick-fil-A, we're asking that you say yes to this and make the SS district into part of the PUD. So it's all folded together so it all follows the same rules as Chick-fil-A, and it's all one parcel piece under the same zoning. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions, comments, or discussion for this item? All right, seeing none, we will see this again next meeting. Next, we have Ordinance 48, 2023. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Ordinance number 48-2023, an ordinance accepting a proposal under the Omnia Partners Cooperative Purchasing Program and authorizing the mayor and the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Game Time in the amount of $218,040.07 for the purchase and installation of certain improvements in Cameron Park and declaring an emergency. whereas the Omnia Partners Cooperative has advertised and received bids for the purchase and installation of certain park improvements, including but not limited to a park shelter, benches, tables, and playground equipment, and whereas the city wishes to purchase and install certain park improvements, including but not limited to a park shelter, benches, tables, and playground equipment in Cameron Park, and whereas Game Time was the lowest and best bidder for the purchase and installation of certain improvements, including but not limited to a park shelter, benches, tables, and playground equipment, with a total bid of $218,040.07. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the City of Springdale accepts the Omnia Partners Cooperative's specifications for the purchase and installation of, including but not limited to, a park shelter, benches, tables, and playground equipment, and agrees that Game Time is the lowest and best bidder for the purchase and installation in the amount of $218,040.07. A copy of the quote provided is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, that the mayor and city administrator are hereby authorized to enter into an agreement with Game Time for the purchase and installation of the improvements in Cameron Park. Section 3, that the finance officer tax commissioner is hereby authorized to pay Game Time the sum of $218,040.07 for the improvements in Cameron Park. Section 4, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 5, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D, 3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is the immediate need to enable the city to execute the agreement as soon as possible prior to the expiration of the purchasing cooperative's bid price.
Council, you've heard the reading of Ordinance 48, 2023. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
All right, we have a motion and second. I believe administration has a presentation on this or comments that they'd like to make.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Charlie Wilson's here to make a brief presentation, and it will pertain to this ordinance and actually the next ordinance that we'll be reading. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson.
All right, I want to thank you all for having me here this evening. I'm here to present on Underwood and Cameron Park revitalization project. I want to back up a few months to kind of give a back history here. Back in June, we were approached by a potential donor. They called and they said, hey, I'd like to make some updates to one, if not maybe two of your parks. So we said, okay, well, what are you looking to do? They said, well, we just want it redone. We want it done right. And so again, I kind of fished. So what are you looking to spend? Well, what are we looking to do here? She said, well, just it doesn't matter what it costs. I just want it done right. So having sort of that limited information, we took our recent poll from our comprehensive plan where we reached out to the community here and said, hey, how can we improve some of our parks? And then also from our connectivity plan, we took some of that information and how we could better implement what we plan to do at these two parks, intertwine them, and hopefully what we did with that information is we got with a contractor, came up with a design, and hopefully hit on elements that the community wishes to see here. So in the comprehensive plan, a couple of things that kind of were reoccurring as far as input from the community was they wanted something to be a little bit more inviting. So as you can see here, Underwood Park, I think we can do a little bit better than that. Obviously, some of our parks have seen some better days, and this is an opportunity here to make some improvements. Another part in the comprehensive plan is they wanted a place for community engagement, where family and friends could gather. And right now at Underwood Park, this is what we have standing there today, which again, I think we can do better. So as far as playground goes, you know, we fare better than most. We have a few playgrounds here in Springdale. That's something to be proud of because not every community has these. But with that said, we needed a facelift, we needed some modernization, and we needed to adapt to some of the more modern playgrounds that we see here today. So with that said, administration and I met with the potential donors, and they had agreed to some of these concepts that I'm about to show you here. So one of the things, or a few of the things we're going to do, and this is an overlay, and trust me, you'll see way prettier images than this. But we're going to completely redo the parking lot. We're going to repave. We're also, I know this is probably hard to see, but we're going to have it more accessible to all the structures that we have out there. So we're going to have walkways to a shelter that could stand anywhere between 25 to 30 folks. There's going to be grills, trash cans, places for people to have family reunions, have birthday parties, really an anchor at the park. We also plan to almost double in size our playground. So here is one of the images here. A couple things I would like to note is a few of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to make it more family friendly, and one of those steps was we wanted to make sure that we shaded that structure because in that particular park it's very exposed to the elements, and we found that that needed to be important. As I mentioned earlier, we wanted to have walkways to each of these structures, especially to the playground, especially with those who might have mobility limitations. We wanted to make a little bit more inclusive play. We also added ADA swing sets. We added the seating inside the playground to make it easier for parents to keep track of their kids, and in the event one of them falls, you know, they're not tripping over the barrier trying to get into the playground to come get their kid. So here's another image. And there's the shelter. And then Cameron Park. Again, not a very inviting image when you first walk into that park. It could use some work, and our maintenance guys, you know, they do their best with what we have. Again, these parks are going to kind of mirror each other. There's our community gathering spot. Don't mind that trash can. The bottom is falling out there. So we're going to have walkways from both the parking lot. We'll completely redo that parking lot as well. We'll have walkways to the picnic shelters and to the playground. And then intertwining the connectivity plan, we will have bike racks at each one of these, so you can ride your bike, your scooter, your e-bike nowadays. Everybody seems to have one. So when we met with the donor, we really weren't sure how much they were actually going to give us. So we tried to be mindful of that in our approach to this and what the community would like to see. But we asked for this amount here, and they agreed to write us a check for $599,500 to make these park improvements. And we hope that these, working with the donor, that this will be something that they can enjoy in their legacy, and also we can provide our residents here some nice new playground equipment. So with that said, I'm free to answer any questions or comments.
That's exciting stuff. Thank you, Charlie. Are there questions or comments from anyone on council? Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you. Just as a comment, I mean, this is the kind of things that just don't happen. This is unbelievable, and it's beyond generous. And some of these things are things that the community's been talking about, asking for, and that elected officials have been asking for in terms of shelters. It's been over 10 years. We've talked about shelters and talked about possibly trying to get the block grant to do that. So to not have just one shelter, but two shelters, along with the new playground, is phenomenal. So we are super fortunate with regard to this and this generous gift.
Thank you. Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you for the presentation. Just curious, is any plan for a bathroom there, or how would that be? Because there's been some concern about that in the past.
Sure. So right now what we do with our outside parks is in the summer months, we have bathrooms stationed outside. We pull those in the winter, but we do have portalets that go out there and that should be out there at some of our designated park areas. Asking for bathrooms, a couple things we needed to keep in mind in this build is we wanted to make sure it was something we could build and maintain with our staff that we have in hand. We don't want to build so big that we can't actually physically maintain it, like restrooms at all the different parks. So that is why we did have some sort of limitations, but we do try to keep restrooms out at the outside parks in the summer and the more busier months. So, good question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, any other questions from council? It's very exciting stuff. As Mr. Hawkins mentioned, is there any intention of, I know you're very careful to protect the name of the donor, is there any intention to recognize this generous gift in other ways? I just want to make sure that they get the credit due, because this is community-changing type of donation.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, we in administration had talked. We plan to do something in the near future to recognize them and their generosity.
Assuming they're willing. I mean, if they want to be anonymous, that's fine, obviously.
Oh, can I share the name? You all right with that? Okay.
You don't have to tonight. I just want to make sure it gets recognized when it's appropriate.
Absolutely. Marjorie Underwood Randolph and her husband, Jim Masinko. Marjorie grew up here in Springdale. She has property off Cameron Road. Underwood was actually named after her mother, and she redid that, I want to say, in our prior conversations about 20 or 30 years ago. She did that in her mother's honor, and she wants to come back for more. So
That's great. That's really fantastic.
yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you for that presentation. All right, is there any other comments or questions for this item? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you could poll council on the ordinance.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Ms. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Ordinance 48, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. All right, moving on to Ordinance 49, 2023. Again, this is related. It also has the emergency clause, but we needed to handle them separately. So, Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready, Ordinance 49, 2023.
An ordinance accepting a proposal under the Omnia Partners Cooperative Purchasing Program and authorizing the mayor and the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Game Time in the amount of $232,525.55 for the purchase and installation of certain improvements in Underwood Park and declaring an emergency. Whereas the Omnia Partners Cooperative has advertised and received bids for the purchase and installation of certain park improvements, including but not limited to a park shelter, benches, tables, and playground equipment. And whereas the city wishes to purchase and install certain park improvements, including but not limited to a park shelter, benches, tables, and playground equipment in Underwood Park. And whereas the Game Time was the lowest and best bidder for the purchase and installation of certain improvements, including but not limited to a park shelter, benches, tables, and playground equipment with a total bid of $232,525.55. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that the City of Springdale accepts the Omnia Partners Cooperative's specifications for the purchase and installation of, including but not limited to, a park shelter, benches, tables, and playground equipment, and agrees that Game Time is the lowest and best bidder for the purchase and installation in the amount of $232,525.55. A copy of the quote provided is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2, that the mayor and administrator are hereby authorized to enter into an agreement with Game Time for the purchase and installation of the improvements in Underwood Park. Section 3, that the finance officer tax commissioner is hereby authorized to pay Game Time the sum of $232,525.55 for the improvements in Underwood Park. Section 4, council hereby finds and determines that all former actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 5, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall, subject to the terms of Article 2D3D of the Charter, be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is the immediate need to enable the city to execute the agreement as soon as possible prior to the expiration of the purchasing cooperative's bid price.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Council, having heard the ordinance, again, it does include the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional discussion on this item? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you could poll council.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Ordinance 49, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. All right, next we'll move on to Ordinance 50, 2023, ordinance amending chapters 35 and 36. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
An ordinance amending chapters 35 and 36 of the Code of Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. Whereas a charter amendment was passed by the voters of Springdale in the general election of November 2021, which eliminated the elected position of Clerk of Council Finance Director and created the appointed position of Clerk of Council. And whereas the approved elimination of the position of Clerk of Council Finance Director and creation of the position of Clerk of Council becomes effective December 1st, 2023, and whereas Council seeks to make certain amendments to Chapters 35 and 36 of the Code of Ordinances consistent with the charter revisions that eliminated the position of Clerk of Council Finance Director and created the position of Clerk of Council. And whereas along with these changes, other revisions are being recommended to other city positions consistent with current city operations. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Council of the City of Springdale, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, Chapters 35 and 36 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale shall be amended as provided for in the attached Exhibit A, which is incorporated herein by reference. All other provisions contained in Chapters 35 and 36 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Springdale, not specifically amended herein, shall remain in full force and effect. Section 2, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with all applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 3, that this ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of the public peace, health, safety, and general welfare, and shall be effective immediately. The reason for the emergency is to enact and adopt code reflective of the current city operations at the earliest possible date and to ensure immediate compliance with charter revisions becoming effective December 1st, 2023. Section 4, this ordinance shall take effect at the earliest date allowed by law.
All right, Council, you've heard Ordinance 50, 2023. It does have the emergency clause. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on Ordinance 50? Seeing none. Ms. Browder, if you could poll council.
Ms. Sullivan-Meiskop?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Ordinance 50, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. Council, next we had originally planned the inserted item, the Resolution 34. If there's no objection, I thought that was the start of our nominations, but I had forgotten that there were a few resolutions before that. So if there's no objections, I'd like to hold the added Resolution 34 until after Resolution 21, so we can finish the other business and then do all of the council appointments at the same time. Is there any objection or concern about that? All right. Then we'll move that down and we'll come back to Resolution 34 after 21. Sorry for the confusion. We'll still chalk it up to it's our first meeting together. All right, then next we'll move on to Resolution R19, 2023, a resolution commending Carolyn Gantos for her dedication and service to the City of Springdale. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Whereas Carolyn Gantos has been a Springdale resident since 1993, Carolyn was elected to the Springdale City Council in 2015 and has represented the residents as an at-large council member from December 1st, 2015 to November 30th, 2023. And whereas Carolyn Gantos has served on the following boards, commissions, and committees while being a member of council: the Housing Committee, Rules and Law Committee, Public Relations Committee, and the Public Welfare, Safety, and Education Committee. And whereas over the years Carolyn has participated in community endeavors such as the Tri-County Soul Ministries, Springdale Offering Support, the Springdale Garden Club, and the Springdale Elementary PTA. And whereas by said service, Carolyn Gantos has showed her interest in and dedication to making the City of Springdale a better place to live. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that Carolyn Gantos is hereby given the commendation of the Council of the City of Springdale for her outstanding and distinguished service to the city. Section 2, that the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to certify a copy of this resolution to Carolyn Gantos. And Section 3, this resolution shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R19, 2023. Is there any comments, discussion, or questions? Ms. Weisskopf.
I know that Carolyn's not here this evening, but Carolyn is one of my neighbors, and she's a wonderful person, and I enjoyed serving on council with her, and she's going to be very, very missed, and I hope to see her doing other things in the city.
Thank you. Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the resolution, they seem to omit that she served on Board of Zoning Appeals.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did.
So we might want to make that correction.
Do we need to make a motion to amend it, or do we just want to just recognize it here tonight? I'd like it to be correct for what she gets presented. She did great work with BZA with me. Mr. Braun?
I would recommend that you, if there's any changes you want to make to them, just move to amend, and then that way the final version will have it in it.
Is there a motion to amend to add Board of Zoning Appeals?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions about the motion to amend the resolution to include and recognize her work on the Board of Zoning Appeals? I'll add, I think it is important, and I appreciate the call out. That's a tough committee to be on. All right. Seeing no further discussion on the motion to amend the resolution, Ms. Browder, if you could poll council on the motion to amend.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland? Aye. Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
All right, the motion to amend the resolution to include her time that was spent on Board of Zoning Appeals was approved with 7 affirmative votes. Thank you for that correction. Are there any other comments or questions about the resolution itself? Well, I do want to add that I served with Ms. Gantos on Board of Zoning Appeals, and she was always a steady voice there. I've known Carolyn for more than 2 decades now, with her granddaughters being in school and helping my kids too. There's a long history with her, and I do wish her well and appreciate the work that she did for the city. I don't think we'll see the last of her. She's too involved and too engaged. So, all right. With that, if we could poll council on the resolution R19, 2023.
I moved to adopt.
Oh my goodness.
You're good. I moved to adopt.
We did.
We did not. We did the other one. You asked for comments before you asked for the thing. We're good.
We'll get it
I moved to
figured-
adopt.
We'll get it figured out anyway. Council, you've heard the resolution. What is your pleasure?
I moved to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. At this point, is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, if we could, Ms. Browder, if we could poll council on resolution R19.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
McFarland? Aye. Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Resolution R19, 2023, as amended, is approved with 7 affirmative votes. We'll get it figured out. We've got enough items today that we'll work through all the bugs tonight, and we'll be smooth sailing from there. All right, next we have Resolution R20, 2023, a resolution commending Joe Ramirez for his dedication and service to the city of Springdale. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
Whereas Joe Ramirez has been a Springdale resident since 1974, Joe was elected to the Springdale City Council in 2019 and has represented residents as an at-large council member from December 1st, 2019 to November 30th, 2023. And whereas Joe Ramirez has served on the following boards, commissions, and committees while being a member of council: the Housing Committee, Building and Fire Appeals, the Volunteer Firefighters Dependents Committee, the Public Works Committee, and is Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee. And whereas Joe Ramirez served 8 years on both the Springdale Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals, including as Chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. And whereas Joe Ramirez served on the Springdale Recreation Commission for 8 years, and whereas Joe Ramirez was a building supervisor at the community center in the 1970s, and later volunteered there, and also became a founding member of the Junior Olympics and the Springdale Golf League. Whereas Joe Ramirez has been active for many years in coaching youth sports in Springdale, whereas by said service, Joe Ramirez has shown his interest in and dedication to making the city of Springdale a better place to live. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, that Joe Ramirez is hereby given the commendation of the Council of the City of Springdale for his outstanding and distinguished service to the city. Section 2, that the Clerk of Council is hereby directed to certify a copy of this resolution to Joe Ramirez. Section 3, this resolution shall take effect on the earliest date allowed by law.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R20, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt. Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any questions or discussions? Ms. Webster.
I was going to move to adopt.
Sorry, for those it's first come, first served without being called on.
Do what?
For those, when we call for motions for that, you're welcome to call out at that point. You don't need to be called on to make a
Okay,
motion.
thank you.
Yeah. All right, so at this point, is there any discussion, questions, or comments about Resolution 20, 2023? See none there. I will add that Mr. Ramirez was actually the chair of Board of Zoning Appeals when I first joined council, and it was my first committee assignment. So he really set a standard for running the meetings, even at that point, especially in Board of Zoning Appeals, which can be tough. There's a lot of history there and a lot of working with the residents. I appreciate the work that he did when he was on the Board of Zoning Appeals with me. All right, seeing no other questions or comments, Ms. Browder, will you poll council?
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland? Aye. Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Resolution R 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. All right, next we have Resolution R 21 2023, a resolution declaring intent to appropriate for public use property. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution declaring intent to appropriate for public use property required for the construction of road and other traffic improvements on Northland Boulevard in the city of Springdale. Whereas consistent with RC 719.05, the city of Springdale, the city seeks to appropriate a portion of property known as Hamilton County Auditor Parcel Number 599-0042-0181-00 located at 342 Northland Boulevard, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45246 for the construction of road and other traffic improvements. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Springdale, Ohio, members elected thereto concurring. Section 1, City Council finds that it is hereby deemed necessary and is hereby declared to be the intent of the City of Springdale to appropriate for public use a portion of the property owned by Incept 346 LLC, known as Hamilton County Auditor Parcel Number 599-0042-0181-00, located at 342 Northland Boulevard, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45246. The property in fee simple for the construction of road and traffic improvements for uses permitted by Revised Code 719.01. Section 2, that at any time subsequent to the effective date of this resolution and prior to the passage of an ordinance to appropriate, the city administrator is hereby authorized with the approval of the law director to acquire by purchase any or all property and in accordance with such acquisition to enter into special contracts for necessary services, expert or otherwise, as the city administrator deems necessary or appropriate associated with the acquisition. Section 3, council hereby finds and determines that all formal actions relative to the passage of this legislation were taken in an open meeting of this council, and that all deliberations of this council and of its committees, if any, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable legal requirements, including Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code. Section 4, that this resolution shall take effect from and after the earliest time allowed by law.
Council, you've heard Resolution R 21 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Mr. Braun?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to let council know that this is coming before you. This is the first step of an appropriation action, which means that this authorizes the city, should we need to do so, to engage in the eminent domain process to appropriate property. And this doesn't happen very often, so I just thought I would take a moment to explain that, especially not just for the new members council, but for all members council. Appropriation is where we appropriate the property for a public use. We've had some discussions with some property owners as it relates to the Northland Boulevard project. We had not reached agreement with this particular property owner at the time that we drafted this and placed it in your packet. I've been advised by city staff we've reached an agreement with that property owner. However, it's not finalized. In the event we need to do an appropriation, I'm asking you to go ahead and approve this, because if we don't, given the number of meetings remaining in the year, our deadline is the end of the year to get this process done. We would need to either initiate litigation or reach an agreement. So as a precautionary measure, I'm asking you to go ahead and approve this, although I'm telling you that the likelihood of us needing it is minimal. And that's actually a good thing, because that means that the city's been able to reach out to these property owners and amicably reach an agreement on them allowing us to either have or use property for this project. So until that's finalized, I'm asking you to go ahead and approve this so that staff has that first step checked off should we need to engage in that process. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right. Other questions, comments about Resolution 21? All right. Seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you could poll council.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland? Aye. Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Resolution R 21 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. All right, council, now we've got a group. What we're coming up against now is a group of resolutions involve that involve committees and appointments. So this is resolution 22 through 34, are all resolutions that we're going to be dealing with in sequence here one at a time. Just for expediency and to make sure everyone understands the process that we're going to use for these, the first, after the one that we've added, there's a number of the committee appointments that are done by the mayor. Those are the ones that show up in your list that already have a name listed on them. And what council would do then is read them, and then we'll vote on them one by one. For the ones that will come up to that don't have a name yet assigned to them, where there's a nomination process, what will happen is we'll start each of those items one at a time. I'll then give an opportunity for, I'll open the floor for nominations. At that point, you would use your call button to call in. I'll recognize you, and then you're able to nominate a person for that specific position. Once that nomination process is closed, if there's more than one person nominated for that specific seat, then we'll go to a vote where each person will select one of the names that was offered for that. In the case where there's just one name that was offered for that nomination process for that specific seat, we would then do by acclamation. We would just read it with that and vote on that on its own. We don't have to vote. The other thing I'll point out is it's not necessary for any of the nominations to be seconded when they're done. So each council person is permitted to present a name or more names at a time each time they're recognized, and then we would process them. Does that make sense? Everyone okay with that process? And we'll go through that. The other thing that I'll mention is that there's a lot of repetition with this for the next set that we're putting on Mr. Jacobs, and it's a lot of the same language. It's just the title that changes the seat and the name. So what I would recommend, and what the chair will entertain, is a motion to read Resolution R22 through R34 by title only, meaning that we would do that process one at a time, read the title with a blank, if it's blank, or read a title with the name, and then act on it. So with that in mind, it just saves us some of the time since we've got a long agenda tonight, and Mr. Jacobs is still warming up his vocal cords, and we don't want to burn him out before his 2-year term is up here. All right, so at this point, the chair will accept a resolution or a motion to read R22 through R34 by title only. Ms. Weisskopf?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to read Resolution R28 through R34 by title only.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and just for clarity, we could do the same thing for 22 through 34.
Oh, I'm sorry.
which
I
includes
was looking at the ones that
motions.
we were filling in. Yes, I'm sorry, all of them. 22 through 34, I'm sorry.
So so we've got an amended
Yeah,
motion to read
yes.
by title only. Is there still a second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded to read by title only, Resolution R22 to 34. Is there any discussion or questions about just the motion to read these by title only? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you could poll council on the motion to read Resolution R22 through R34 by title only.
Ms. Sullivan Weisskopf? Aye. Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
No.
All right, the motion is approved, 6 votes to 1. So we'll be reading resolutions R22 to 34 by title only. All right, so if we can go and start with the resolution that we added, Resolution R34, 2023. This is the unexpired term from the member for Board of Zoning Appeals from the member that has moved out of the city. Mr. Jacobs, if you could read it first by title only with the blank.
Resolution appointing a nominee to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Board of Zoning Appeals for the unexpired term ending November 30th, 2025.
All right, at this point, I'll open the floor for nominations for the unexpired term for Board of Zoning Appeals for November 30th, 2025. Mr. Jacobs.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Michelle Gilmore for this position.
Second.
No seconds.
Sorry, I forgot.
All right, we've got Ms. Gilmore, and this is for the unexpired term. Mr. Gleaves.
Cancel it.
All right. The floor is still open for nominations. Seeing none, at this point, by acclamation, could we read Resolution R34, 2023 with the name Michelle Gilmore inserted?
Resolution appointing Michelle Gilmore to serve as member of the City of Springdale Board of Zoning Appeals for the unexpired term ending November 30th, 2025.
Council, you've heard the resolution R34, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Second. No, wait.
Moved and seconded Any discussion about Resolution R34, 2023?
I guess I've
Ms. Webster.
misunderstood this. Why are we not having names in these other places?
So what's going to happen, when we get to each one of them, each one we have the opportunity to nominate one or more people for each one of them for council, because council as a group nominates those. The ones that have names are coming from the mayor's office, from Mr. Hawkins, so he can just add a name.
But he's not through 24.
This is the one that we added that wasn't on the agenda before.
All right, okay, so that's what I'm for. But these are all we fill in.
Yes, we will still go through those.
Okay. It was very confusing.
I agree. There's a lot going on there. All right. Any other questions about R34, 2023? All right, Ms. Browder, if you could poll council.
Ms. Sullivan Meiskop? Aye. Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland? Aye. Mrs. Webster?
No.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Resolution R34, 2023 is approved with 6 affirmative votes. I think Ms. Gilmore's in the audience. Thank you, and we look forward to having you on the Board of Zoning Appeals. All right. Now moving on to Resolution R22, 2023, again by title only. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution confirming the mayor's appointment of Scott Garrison as a member of the City of Springdale Board of Health for the term ending November 30th, 2025.
Council, we've heard the reading of Resolution R22, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Moved and seconded. Is there any questions or discussions about R22, 2023? Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. With regard to R22, R23, and R24, all appointments for the Board of Health, asking for council's support with regard to those. Scott Garrison, as well as Jim Squires and Holly Emerson, have all served on the board before. Ms. Emerson did it as an elected official. She's going to come back to do it as a member of the board. All of them great experience and have done an excellent job for the city. So asking for your support with regard to those 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs.
I just want to echo that comment. It was great to work with Mr. Garrison in my time as liaison to the Board of Health, so I appreciate the nomination as well.
Any other comments or questions about Resolution R22? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you could poll council.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan Meiskop?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland? Aye. Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Resolution R22, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. I don't know if Mr. Scott's here, but if he's, or Mr. Garrison's here, but if he's on or sees the meeting recording, thank you for being willing to serve. We look forward to having you for another 2 years. Next, we move to Resolution R23, 2023. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution confirming the mayor's appointment of Jim Squires as a member of the City of Springdale Board of Health for the term ending November 30th, 2025.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R23, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Council, any questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing no discussion, Ms. Browder, if you could poll council on Resolution R23.
Ms. Sullivan Meiskop?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland? Aye. Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Resolution R23, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. Mr. Squires, I don't believe is here, but we look forward to seeing you back on the Board of Health as well. Next, we have Resolution R24, 2023. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution confirming the mayor's appointment of Holly Emerson as a member of the City of Springdale Board of Health for the term ending November 30th, 2025.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R24, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, when you're ready, poll council.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan Meiskop?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland? Aye. Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Resolution R24, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. I'm looking forward to see Holly back in these buildings again. I think we finally dragged her out of retirement, so that'll be great. For those that don't know, Ms. Emerson was on council for a number of years as well. All right. Next, we have Resolution R25, 2023. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution confirming Al Chang to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R25, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Starting to hit the mic button, old habits. With regard to Resolution R25, R26, and R27, just a little brief bit about these individuals. Al Chang is a Princeton Viking, has a lot of energy, and very excited about getting to work. He's an individual that I believe is going to be one of the people that's going to sort of be a bridge in the gap of transferring information. I think he's going to be someone who's going to be engaged in this process for decades to come. And so I think he's going to be a great asset. With regard to Carolyn Gantos, former council member, has been on Board of Zoning Appeals. Obviously, everyone knows what she brings to the table. She'll be an excellent addition with regard to the Planning Commission. And last but clearly not least, present Mr. Steve Galster, former council member and a fixture with regard to Planning Commission. I think he is so important and critical to what goes on with that board or commission. And so asking for your support with regard to these individuals, please.
Thank you. Any other discussion on Resolution R25? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, will you poll council?
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland? Aye. Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Resolution R25, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. I believe this is Mr. Al Chang's first formal role with the city, so welcome aboard. If you read the minutes or see it, we look forward to your time here. Next, Resolution R26, 2023. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution confirming Carolyn Gantos to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R26, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on Resolution R26? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, will you poll council?
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland? Aye. Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Resolution R26, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. She wasn't gone for very long. Welcome back, Ms. Gantos. We look forward to seeing you on planning. Next, we have Resolution R27, 2023. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution appointing a nominee to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R27, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Ms. Wisecup.
We need to put a nominee in there. I
This
had
is-
had a nominee.
This is for Galster.
Also.
Oh, did I?
Did you read the wrong one?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, that's
I
I was
did that. I
confused.
apologize.
Yeah. I was like, wait a
I
minute.
must have just tucked them into the paper. Yes, so I was reading R28. My apologies.
All right, so why don't we back up? We don't need to do anything formal to remove the move to adopt or anything, Mr. Braun?
Correct.
All right, well, let's back up and read Resolution R27. This is for Mr. Galster in the audience to reappoint him to planning.
Round 2, my apologies. A resolution confirming Steve Galster to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027.
Move to adopt.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R27 confirming Steve Galster as a member of the Planning Commission. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions about Resolution R27? This is for Mr. Galster returning to Planning Commission. Mr. Vanover.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Galster, does being rated a fixture carry any benefits?
We'll play the light game. All right, thank you for that. Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, can we poll council? And this is for Resolution R27, 2023. from
Ms.
Mr.
Sullivan
Galster.
Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Resolution R27, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. Mr. Gosser's in the audience, thank you for being willing to serve, and I apologize for the confusion why we're nominating you. That is in no way an indictment on your service. We appreciate your time.
I don't want to knock it.
All right.
Break it.
Are these related to Mr. Hawkins?
Just want to say, council, thank you for your support.
Mr. Braun?
Just as a point of order, now that we're going to be entering a series of resolutions that have blanks to be filled in, just so that it's clear what everyone's voting on, I would appreciate if when Mr. Jacobs reads it the first time, he has a blank, do nominations, then have it read a second time with the name in it, so the record is clear as to what everyone's voting on. If we can do that, that would just make it clear in the minutes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, and that's the process we'll follow. Does everybody understand the process we'll be using? Are there questions about the process? This will be the same thing we do for the remaining resolutions. So we'll start by having Mr. Jacobs read it. He'll include a blank. After he reads it with a blank, I'll open the floor for nominations. At that point, you would use your call light to call in, and then I'll call on you. You can add a nomination. Once those are complete, then if there's more than one person, we'll go through the voting process. All right? Okay, so we'll start with resolution, or next up is resolution R28, 2023. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution appointing a nominee to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027.
All right, at this point, I will open the floor for nominations for resolution R28, 2023. This is for the Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027. Ms. Weisskopf.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to nominate David Oakham to planning. I do have his full bio if you'd like to see it, but he has been on planning on and off since the early 80s. And he's on OKI, Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission, 2006 to present, OKI Regional Council of Governments Executive Committee, 2008 to present, OKI Regional Council of Governments Strategic Land Use Committee, 2009 to present, Planning Commissioner, City of Springdale, 1989 to 1993 and 1995 to present. Vice Chairman, Planning Commission, 1995. Chairman, 2022, 2023. He's been on Board of Zoning Appeals, been Chair and Vice Chair multiple times, and the list literally goes on and on. If anybody wants this, I will be glad to give it to you. He's our chairperson, and very literally, you can ask him on a dime about code, and he can recite it without even thinking about it. And that is invaluable to me, so I would appreciate it if you would consider him.
All right. So this is for R28, 2023. Are there other nominations for this seat? Seeing none, I will close nominations for this seat. By acclamation, can we read resolution R28, 2023, inserting the name David Oakham as you read the title?
R28, 2023, a resolution appointing David Oakham to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027.
Council, you've heard the reading of resolution R28, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion on this item before we vote? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, if you could poll council.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Ms. Sutherland Weisskopf?
Aye.
Resolution R28, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. Mr. Oakham, welcome back. We appreciate your time and service. As Ms. Weisskopf indicated, you've been very instrumental in the city's success. We look forward to several more years. Everyone okay with the process following it? Okay. Then we'll move on to resolution R29, 2023. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready, again, reading with a blank first.
A resolution appointing a nominee to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027.
All right, at this point, I will open the floor for nominations for resolution R29, 2023. This is for a seat on the Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027. Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to nominate Michelle Miller.
All right.
She was just on the board of Planning Commission, and I work with her on the Board of Zoning Appeals. She works with SOS. She's been in the community forever. She's born and raised here. So I'm nominating her.
All right, thank you. Ms. Webster.
I would like to nominate Joe Ramirez. He just was on council. He's a 4-year member of Springdale Council, 8-year member of the Planning Commission, past chairman of Board of Zoning Appeals for 8 years, 4 years vice chairman of Springdale Finance Committee, 4 years of the Firefighters Benevolent Committee, member of the Recreation Commission, 8 years, member of the Board of Housing, Building and Fire Appeals for 4 years, member of Public Works Committee 4 years, founding member of Junior Olympics, baseball, basketball, soccer coach, founding member of the Springdale Golf League.
All right, thank you. The floor is still open for nominations for Resolution R29 for the Planning Commission seat. Are there any other nominees? All right, seeing none, I'm closing nominations for this seat. So what's going to happen now is we'll end up polling council, and rather than saying yay or nay, what you're going to be asked to do is to give a name specifically of the 2 nominees that have been put forward. So when your name comes up, you would either respond back with Ms. Miller or Mr. Ramirez, and then wherever the majority lands is where it would be put into that seat for then us to vote on as a total.
Okay.
Do I have that right, Mr. Braun? Perfect. We don't do a lot of these. They happen all at once, and then it kind of goes away for a while. All right, so at this point, Ms. Browder, if you could poll council for the nomination for the Resolution R29 for either Miller or Ramirez.
Mr. Anderson?
Ms. Miller.
Mr. Gleaves?
Ms. Miller?
Mr. Jacobs?
Mr. Ramirez?
McFarland?
Ms. Miller?
Mrs. Webster?
Mr. Ramirez.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Mr. Ramirez?
Mr. Vanover?
Mr. Ramirez.
By a vote of 4-3, Mr. Ramirez is the nominee for this seat. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready, you can read Resolution R29, 2023, adding the name Joseph Ramirez to the title.
A resolution appointing Joe Ramirez to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Planning Commission for the term ending November 30th, 2027.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution 29, 2023 for Mr. Ramirez to join the Springdale Planning Commission. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any additional discussion for Mr. Ramirez? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, when you're ready, poll council.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Resolution R29, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. I do want to say welcome back, Mr. Ramirez, another short retirement from a council member. For those that haven't been through this process before, it's in no way an indictment when somebody is nominated and it comes down to a contested vote like that. Ms. Miller is a very valued member of the community, as is Mr. Ramirez, and we're in a situation where we're blessed to have more than one very qualified nominee for these seats, and there will be other opportunities in the future for people if they don't end up in the seats they're nominated for. So thank you for the way that we dealt with that. I appreciate it. All right, next, Resolution R30, 2023. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution appointing a nominee to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Board of Zoning Appeals for the term ending November 30th, 2027.
At this point, I will open the floor for nominations for Resolution R30, 2023. This is for a full-term member seat for the Board of Zoning Appeals that would end November 30th, 2027. Are there nominees for this position? Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to nominate Evander Graham. Evander lives on 11810 Fair Springs Court. He's a real estate agent for Coldwell Banker. He has 2 boys. He's married. His boys are 11 and 7. He's very excited about the possibility of being on the board, and I would like him to be nominated.
All right. Are there other nominations? The floor is still open for nominees. Seeing none, by acclamation, we'll reread Resolution R30, 2023 with the name Evander, I'm sorry, was it Grand?
Evander Graham.
Graham. Thank you. Graham. Do you have that, Mr. Jacobs? When you're ready.
A resolution appointing Evander Graham to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Board of Zoning Appeals for the term ending November 30th, 2027.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R30, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Moved and seconded. Any additional discussion on this board appointment? See none, Ms. Browder, when you're ready, could you poll council?
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Resolution R30, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes, and that appoints Mr. Graham to serve as a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I believe this is another first-time appointment to a board like that, so welcome aboard, Mr. Graham. We look forward to having him serve the city. All right. Next, we have Resolution R31, 2023. This is for appointing a member to the Charter Revision Committee with a term ending December 31st, 2028. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution appointing a nominee to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Charter Revision Committee for the term ending December 31st, 2028.
Council, at this point, we will open the floor for nominations for appointments to serve as the Charter Revision Committee member for the term ending December 31st, 2028. The floor is open for nominations. Ms. Weiskamp.
Yes, I'd like to nominate R.C. Hong. She is currently serving, and she did say that she would like to continue serving. She lives in Springdale. She lived here her whole life, and she raised her children here, and she and her husband live on News.
All right. The floor is still open for nominees. Closing nominations by acclamation. Could we read Resolution R31, 2023, adding the name Marcy Hong to the appointment?
A resolution appointing Marcy Hongs to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Charter Revision Committee for the term ending December 31st, 2028.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R31, 2023. This is a resolution appointing Ms. Hong to serve as a member of the Charter Revision Committee. Is there any what is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on Resolution R31? Seeing none? Ms. Browder, will you poll council?
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Ms. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Ms. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Resolution R31, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. Welcome back, Ms. Hong. We appreciate your help with Charter Revision. I know you just had your annual meeting tonight, so thank you. All right, next, Resolution R32, 2023. This is for a resolution for the Civil Service Commission for the term ending December 31st, 2026. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution appointing a nominee to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Civil Service Commission for the term ending December 31st, 2026.
At this point, I'll open the floor for nominations for Resolution R32, 2023. This is for the Civil Service Commission for the term ending December 31st, 2026. Mr. Vanover.
I nominate Kathy McNear, our outgoing Clerk Council Finance Director, longtime council member. So.
All right. Mr. Gleaves?
Well, Mr. Vanover, thank you, Mr. President. You stole it from me. I was going to do that, so.
I have it too.
Okay.
I did too.
All right.
Would anyone else like to nominate Ms. McNair to this position?
We don't need a bio.
All right, the floor is still open for nominations. Seeing none, I'm closing nominations for this board seat. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready, could read Resolution R32, 2023, adding the name Mrs. McNair.
A resolution appointing Kathy McNear to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Civil Service Commission for the term ending December 31st, 2026.
Council, you've heard the reading of Resolution R32, 2023 for the Civil Service Commission position with Ms. McNear. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion aside from racing to see who could nominate her? Mr. Jacobs.
Does this mean that there's like no way she can come back and do the reading? That's. Sorry.
Why don't we save that for new business? All right. Any other discussion? All right. Ms. Browder, will you poll council for Resolution R32 for McNear for the Civil Service Commission?
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mrs. Sullivan Wisecup?
Aye.
Resolution R32, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. Once again, a very short retirement. We appreciate Ms. McNair's service to the city. All right. Next, we have Resolution R33, 2023. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution appointing a nominee to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Tax Review Board for the term ending December 31st, 2025.
All right, at this point, I'll open the floor for nominations for a member to, or nominations for the position of Springdale Tax Review Board for the term ending December 31st, 2025. Are there any nominees? I believe this is the position that that Roy, I can't remember his last name. I can look it up. Mitchell was a part of. I know when I spoke with him in the past, he was willing to continue. If there's no other nominees offered, I'm happy to offer him up as a nominee. All right, I do that. I nominate Roy Mitchell to continue in his role and the Springdale Tax Review Board. Any other nominees? The floor is still open. All right, seeing none, and then by acclamation, we will reread resolution with the, I'm sorry, the floor is closed for nominees. Now, by acclamation, we will reread that resolution with Mr. Mitchell's name added. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready.
A resolution appointing Roy Mitchell to serve as a member of the City of Springdale Tax Review Board for the term ending December 31st, 2025.
Council, you've heard the reading of resolution R33, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Browder, when you're ready, will you poll council?
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mrs. Sullivan-Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mrs. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Resolution R33, 2023 is approved with 7 affirmative votes. And if for some reason Mr. Mitchell declines, we can deal with that in a future meeting. All right, we got through the resolutions. Thank you, Council, for indulging that process. I know it was a lot, so I think that went well. So I appreciate your time and consideration. I also appreciate everyone who put their names forward to be a part of the process. There will be other boards and commissions that will be available throughout the year and throughout the years coming ahead, and there'll be more opportunities, but these are the ones that we're dealing with tonight. All right, next we have item 8, executive session. Ms. Sullivan-Wisecup.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that we go to an executive session pursuant to Article 2, D1 of the Charter of the City of Springdale to consider economic development matters.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Administration, are we expecting any action out of tonight's executive session? All right. At this point, is there any discussion before we poll council? Ms. Trotter, if you could poll council on the motion to move to an executive session for economic development discussions.
Ms. Sullivan-Wisecup?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
All right. With the 7-0, we are moving to executive session. So we're retired for people who haven't been. Leave your mics here and turn them off, and we'll go back to the conference room and continue the discussion. We will be back. for that long. Council is back in session after returning from executive session. Next on the agenda, we have old business, item 9. Is there any old business that anyone on council would like to bring forth? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. We have two items in new business already. The first item is election of council representatives to boards and commissions. On this, council, you had at your seats a list that was also sent out to you in your email that has the council appointments both for boards and commissions as well as the council-specific seats. So at this point, I'll ask if there's any questions or concerns. Otherwise, just by acclamation, what was sent out is what will be the appointments. Are there any questions or concerns about the council appointments to committees and commissions? Mr. Vanover. Yes, that's a good question. It's one that I asked Mr. Braun before the meeting, and the indication I got at the time was that we could do it this way. Mr. Braun, is that still your belief, or would you prefer that we go through each of those, at least for Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning?
Is your question are these the council reps for these?
These are the council members that would be appointed.
In the past, I was not aware of what we did in the past, and I indicated that to the president. Let me just look here to see if it's required. These are the two members that are appointed by council?
Yes, for both planning and BZA.
The wording of it is appointed. I guess what you can do is you can ask if there's any objection to those appointments, and then if there are, then we could.
Then we do a vote for each of them individually.
Are you comfortable with that, the other members of council?
Is that right? Okay.
However you want to make appointments is really something that you do and guide yourself on.
I can't.
All right, we'll do it. We'll follow that process right now. So let me ask council formally. The appointments that are suggested are before you and are provided in advance of the meeting. Are there any objections or desire to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals or any of the commission appointments individually? All right, seeing no objections or concerns, at this point we'll consider by acclamation the appointments as submitted is where council members will be. And again, as I know Mr. Vanover had shared in the past during his time as president, there's very little that we do up on council that we can't fix or change in the future. So if there's an issue that comes up, we could certainly revisit those, and if there's an issue, just let me know, and we can put it back on the agenda. All right? Great. All right, so moving on then, I'm sorry, Mr. Hawkins.
I want to hit that button. Thank you, Mr. President. Just in terms of new business, one other issue that's going to come up for council is With Ms. Gilmore going on to BZA, it's going to free up a spot for charter revision, so it'll be something else for council to look at for the next meeting in December. Thank you.
Mr. Gleaves, did you have a comment or a question before we move on to the OKI item?
Yes, Mr. President. You mentioned about the changes can be made in the future. Is this recent future, distant future? I mean, what time frame are we talking about? Just in case this is something that needs to be done.
The expectation is these appointments would be for your term, for the term of council, or at least for the next 2 years for that. So some of the, as directed by president or as appointed by president, those would be for the length of this council term, which would be 2 years. There are some of the appointments like Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals that are listed as term of office, so that would be retained. At any point in time, any of these commissions or committees, council members certainly have the opportunity to resign from them, or we could, there's processes in place in the rules to remove people and change them if we need to. My expectation, based on the feedback that we got, is that these would be the appointments for the next 2 years, or term of office, depending on what position it is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Other questions about that before we move on? All right. The next item we have is appointment of representative to the OKI board. This is an annual position where OKI asks for nominations, and we really need to take care of this tonight. The nominations are technically due December 1st for the next year's term as the OKI representative. For those that don't know, OKI is the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Board of Executives. This is where a lot of infrastructure funds come through. It's a regional committee. It involves all the local jurisdictions, and county and state leadership is part of that. It has a real impact to Springdale. We get a lot of money and involvement through OKI, and it's a real way to see what's going on in the rest of the community. You can see the interjurisdiction cooperation. So we talk about things, or we had talked about things about, everything from the Brent Spence Bridge to road paths, traffic signals, all that exciting infrastructure stuff. For the past, I want to say 6 years, I've served on that committee, although in my new role, typically, I wouldn't necessarily come back to that, and I wanted to make sure that it was available for anyone that wanted to take that job on. So in a second, we'll open up the floor for nominations for OKI representative. It's a 1-year term. The thing to keep in mind for it is the meetings typically are once a month, and they're at 10:30 in the morning downtown at the OK office. So there is a commitment there where those meetings last about an hour, hour and a half most days. At a minimum, the board of directors that you'd be appointed to initially are only required to be, I want to say 6 meetings. Some of the meetings are executive committee only, where the board members are allowed to attend but not vote. I've typically gone to all of them. They're very interesting if you're into that sort of thing. If there's questions about what OKI is or the commitment, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move on to looking for nominations. All right, I don't see any questions. At this point, I will open the floor for nominations, but I will also say the nature of this one isn't where you're nominating a resident, and it's yourself. So do feel free to speak up if it's something that you want to do, to feel free to nominate yourself, which is permitted. Are there any, at this point I open the floor for nominations for the appointment to representatives to the OKI board. Are there any nominations?
You.
I certainly am willing to. I'm not sure that there's a precedent for or against it. So I'm comfortable with that, unless Mr. Braun says that it's not something President Council can participate in. I love infrastructure. All right, so Ms. Weisskopf, do you have a nomination?
I do. I would like to nominate Jeffrey Anderson to OKI.
Second.
Again, seconds and thirds aren't necessary for boards, but thank you. All right, so then by acclamation, we should still vote on that since it's an appointment. At this point, I'm closing nominations for representative to the OKI board. So Ms. Browder, if you could poll council on the appointment of Jeffrey Anderson to OKI for a 1-year term.
Ms. Sullivan-Weisskopf?
Aye.
Ms. McFarland?
Aye.
Mr. Gleaves?
Aye.
Mr. Jacobs?
Aye.
Mrs. Webster?
Aye.
Mr. Vanover?
Aye.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes. By a 7-0 vote, Mr. Anderson, myself, is appointed as OKI for the next year. I will submit that. It's an online form. Typically, in the past years, either I or Ms. McNear had submitted that. Just for completeness, just know that I can go ahead and fill out that form unless Ms. Browder tells me otherwise. Thank you. I do enjoy OKI. All right, at this point, other new business. Mr. Vanover.
Just up here. There we go. I just want to kind of revisit Mr. Gleave's comment. Planning, BZA, are 4-year appointments, term of office. However, Finance Committee, Rules and Laws, Public Works, OKI is a 1-year, so we'll be back again next year on that. Public Utilities, Public Relations, Capital Improvements, Public Welfare, Safety, and Education. Those are all 2-year terms, so those could change, just even though your term, at this point may be 4 years. But BZA and Planning are 4 years. Charter Revision is one of the other exceptions. It's a 5-year term. So that's the makeup and where the potential changes would occur at those points.
All right. Thank you for that clarification. And if you're looking at your sheet, how you would know that difference, there's 2 places. The appointments that show up on your sheet as white, those are the ones that are by presidential or by president appointment. Those tend to be the 2-year appointments that Mr. Vanover was speaking to. The green one, some of the Board of Zoning Appeals, Planning Commission, the green ones are either term of office or 2 years. But the white ones, I believe, are all those 2-year appointments. But for what it's worth, the source of truth, this handout that you got was so you could see by your view which ones you're appointed to and be part of. City administration does maintain a master list of the appointments, and that master list includes the term of office. So if you have any doubt or question for what that appointment term is, the city administration maintains that, and you can request that. It'll be distributed anyway once it's updated. So this sheet is just for your convenience, and then there'll be an updated sheet from administration where it's kept. All right? All right. Any other new business? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to meetings and announcements. Mr. Vanover?
Finance Committee will be meeting on the 13th at 4:30 in the conference chamber.
Ms. Sullivan-Wisecup.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is no meeting for planning in December. We didn't have anybody apply.
Mr. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Board of Health will meet on December 15th. I apologize, I pushed that again. At 7 p.m. adjacent to this chamber.
Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. SOS is still taking donations. You can adopt a family or just make a donation, so please keep that in mind as we continue to progress towards the holiday season. Also, on January the 5th at 6:30, we will have our annual pep rally and Hall of Fame induction at the Rec Center. Thank you.
So which day was the Hall of Fame?
January the 5th, Friday.
All right, Mr. Gleaves.
Thank you, Mr. President. Board of Zoning Appeals meeting scheduled for December 19th has been canceled. The next scheduled meeting is set for January 23rd at these chambers.
Great, thank you. Mr. Ewell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have one of each. I have a meeting to announce. Civil Service Commission will meet tomorrow, December 7th at 2 p.m. in the council conference room. And I have an announcement, just that we will be having a public hearing associated with Ordinance 47, 2023, regarding 501 East Kemper at our December 20th meeting.
All right. Any other meetings and announcements? All right. Next, we'll move on to communications from the audience. The floor is open for communications from the audience if anyone would like to address council for any reason.
Hello, everyone. My name's Katie Wells, and I live on Bernhardt Court. Couple things. First, I'd like to thank everybody for making sure that ICRC can stay past executive sessions. I know that was an issue in the past where people were at home trying to watch the meetings, and if there was an executive session, ICRC would turn the camera off, and then no one was able to see anything past the executive session, which typically included a lot of the agenda, like old business and new business and any meetings and announcements. So thank you guys for making sure that they stay until the end so everyone can stay in the loop. Second, regarding the new playground, thank you guys so much for making sure that that goes through, and for the person who donated, it's huge. I am fortunate enough to utilize Underwood Park, which will see the new playground, and I also have a child with a disability, so the mobility access is going to be huge for my family, and I know it's also going to help in a way with everyone's property values to have such a nice park right there. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you a million times for that. And I don't know if you can answer my question, but over at Underwood Park, we are fortunate to have sidewalks on our streets. Since I live on Bernhardt, it kind of ends on Grandin, but on Underwood Park, that side entrance, we have a little sidewalk that kind of goes down the hill and it just stops at a tree. And if anybody's been there, they know exactly what I'm talking about. So I know that in heavy rain, that area is like a river, but I was curious if anyone knew, based off the renderings we saw, if that sidewalk would be connected, or if that's something completely separate with the connectivity plan of Springdale.
That's a great question. Thank you for bringing it up. I do agree. I think the parks are amazing. I don't know, administration, if you have ideas now, or is that something we can follow up with? Get an answer. Follow up.
Follow up.
If it's all right, if administration can follow up with
you guys know how to get a hold of me, so you can email me or call me.
And if you don't hear back within a week or two, I mean, definitely reach out and we'll get you an answer.
Thank you, guys. That's all I had. Thanks again.
Thank you. And sorry for the clock. We'll get a new one on. It's on order. All right. Communications lines is still open. Second call. Third and final call. Communications to the audience is now closed, and we can move on to updates on legislation still in development. Mr. Jacobs, when you're ready. We haven't heard enough from you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you review your internal memorandum, item 1 was addressed by ordinances 48 and 49, accepting proposals under the Omnia Partners Cooperative Purchasing Program and authorizing the mayor and the city to enter into agreements with Game Time for the purchase and installation of certain improvements in Cameron and Underwood Park and declaring an emergency. Item 2 was addressed by Ordinance 50, an ordinance amending chapters 35 and 36 of the Code of the Ordinance of the City of Springdale, Ohio, and declaring an emergency, and that passed with 7 affirmative votes. Item 3 was addressed by Ordinance 48. It was a first reading. And item 4 was addressed by Resolution 21, declaring intent to appropriate for public use property required for the construction of road and other traffic improvements on Northland Boulevard in the City of Springdale. That was approved with 7 affirmative votes. Item 6, resolutions recognizing Carolyn Ganthouse and Joseph Ramirez for their years of service, was addressed by resolutions 19 and 20, both passed with 7 affirmative votes.
Did you cover this one?
And then there was a boatload of council appointments and confirmation of mayoral appointments. Do you require me to run through those in any way?
No.
Thank you so very much.
For those keeping score, it was resolution 22 to 34.
22 to 34. All other items are still forthcoming.
All right. And then staying with Mr. Jacobs for updates on legislation still in development.
There will be, at our next council meeting on the 20th, an appropriation and transfer ordinance to kind of cover the gap during the budget year, which is a typical annual vote we have to take. And then adopting appropriations, no wait, that's the other one, in terms of covering a gap. 2 issues basically related to the budget and general fund issues.
And there'll also be a second reading for the resolution we heard tonight, as well as an additional appointment to replace Ms. Gilmore's spot on charter revision. We'll look for resolution there. So the other part of that is there'll be an additional appointment that we need to make at the next meeting to make sure that charter revision is ready to go for their next year's appointments. Anything else? And there's a public hearing attached to, I don't remember which item it was.
For 7.
Well, item 7, there's a public hearing attached. Are we good? Anything else from council or administration on legislation for next time? For those that couldn't understand exactly what's happening with those finance ordinances for end of year and future, the next meeting is we're going to have the reading for the budget presentation. That's also something that's coming in the next meeting. So our finance committee meeting will be very busy, and we'll look for that update in the next meeting too as we go through the next budget. All right, all that's left then is item 15. Before we do that, I just do want to say thank you to all the new members and for everyone for bearing with me as we work through these first few meetings, getting through the process. Transitioning is always a challenge. It turns out I'm going to make a few mistakes. I made a few tonight. I expect to make more in the future, but keep me honest, and I appreciate everyone working with us on it. All right, item 15.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you.